Part 4, Jesus as the door. 4, 3, 2. I was recently visiting someone at the hospital, and the way this hospital is built is when you come off the elevator, you turn a corner, and then you go to a set of doors, and beyond those doors are the patient rooms. And on this day, when I turned the corner, I noticed there was someone there kind of standing in front of the doors, looking at them. I could see that they were studying things, and I walked up, and as they saw me approach, they said, "I don't really know what button I need to push to get how to get these doors to open." There was like a red box in the wall, and she said, "I don't want to touch anything on that red box." And I was like, "That's always a pretty good guess as what not to do at a hospital. Don't touch anything. It's got a red button or in a red box." But as she was pondering that, I knew how to open the door because I'd been there before, and I said, "Well, here, I'll open it for you." And I stepped in front of her, and just with my hand, finger maybe, but it didn't take much, just pushed the door open because that's all you had to do. The door, there was no button to mash, nothing else. You just push the door, and the door would open up. That's all it took. Now, before I laugh at her folly, I have to remember that there was a time in a certain pastor's past when he went to a certain mall somewhere and stood in front of what he thought was an automatic door that was going to open up, and he might have stood there for 10 or 15 seconds and thought, "What is wrong with this place? Why can't they even get their doors fixed?" And then realized, their doors don't open automatically. And the reason I realized that is because someone walked by me, looked at me like I was crazy, looked at this guy like he was crazy, was standing there and just opened the door and walked in. Maybe something like that's happened to you. If so, maybe you and I can start a club. We have doors all around us. We enter doors to go into our houses, into our offices. Even some of us have doors within our offices, doors within doors within doors, doors all around us to come in, to go out, etc. They had doors in Bible times, much different than what we are accustomed to, especially out in the field where the sheep were. And that's what Jesus alludes to in John chapter 10. He refers to himself as the gate of the sheepfold, or the door of the sheepfold. The sheepfold, if we can just kind of set the stage to get a visual idea of it, the sheepfold was basically usually a circular pen that was constructed of stones and rocks that would be stacked on top of each other to a height that would provide some sense of safety, or at the very least, so the sheep could not crawl over them and get out. The size of those sheep pens, those sheep folds, would depend upon the size of the flock, how many sheep the shepherd had. But if you can get in your mind this circular type of gate, type of building, that in the middle, somewhere around that perimeter, there is an opening, and that opening is the sheep gate. That opening is the sheep door. It's the door to the sheepfold. And Jesus uses that aspect to describe himself. Take a look at John chapter 10. We're going to read in John chapter 10, verses 1 and 10. Here's what it says. "Truly I tell you, anyone who doesn't enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in some other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens it for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought all his own outside, he goes ahead of them. The sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will never follow a stranger. Instead, they will run away from him because they don't know the voice of strangers." Jesus gave them this figure of speech, but they did not understand what he was telling them. Verse 7, Jesus said again, "Truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep didn't listen to them. I am the gate." And he can't be clear. I am the gate. "If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will come in and go out and find pasture. A thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come so they may have life and have it in abundance." Let's think for a moment about Jesus as the door. Jesus being the door speaks to several things. One, it speaks to separation. Okay, when the sheep would come into their sheepfold, they were separated from everything else around them. Shepherd John Doe's sheep could not come into Shepherd John Smith's pen. Each shepherd had his own sheepfold, his own pen, and that's where the sheep would stay. The sheep were separated from those around them. They were separated from danger. They were separated from things that might bring them harm. Jesus, as we'll see in another future statement, makes it very clear that he, as the door of the sheepfold, is drawing a line of separation. You're either inside the sheepfold with Jesus or you're not. There's no middle place to be. Jesus, as the door, separates those who belong to Jesus and those who don't. Jesus, being the gate of the sheepfold, separates those who are followers of Jesus and those who are following someone or something else. Jesus as a door speaks of separation, but Jesus as a door also speaks of security. The sheep, when they go into the sheepfold, they are safe and secure. If they are being chased, they can run into the sheepfold and find the safety there because they are closed within and the shepherd is guarding the gate. The shepherd himself is often the door. And so there's a sense of security and safety. It was also a place of salvation, and that's, I think, maybe the most striking thing to think about, is that Jesus as the door is speaking of salvation. See, what happened in Bible times in a sheepfold is that gate or that door, there were a couple of different ways that most shepherds handled this. There was the option to where they might build some kind of gate themselves, to where you have just a physical structure that kind of is a door that has to be opened and closed. But more often than not, when the shepherd would gather those sheep at the end of the day, he would bring them into the sheepfold. He himself would lay down in that opening. He would sit in that opening. He would become the door, the gate to come in and out of the sheepfold. As such, as he is the door, that means that none of those sheep that are inside can get out, and it means that none of those threats on the outside can get in. Because a good shepherd, when he serves as the door, it speaks of the salvation of the sheep. Now, can you see how that can easily apply to Jesus? That when Jesus said, I am the gate of the sheepfold, when he said, I am the door, that it was Jesus, I believe he was specifically referring to the fact that he was going to lay down his life as the gate to protect the sheep that he would call to his name. He was going to become the door, the gate who offered his life to provide us, his children, with salvation, with security, with safety, separating us from the things around us that might try to harm us. That makes a big difference, because Jesus went on to talk about how towards the end of the text, he says, I am the gate. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and come in and go out and find pasture. There's that idea of safety. You're going in, you're going out. There's the idea of your needs are being supplied. You find pasture. But listen to what he says in verse 10. He says, a thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come. As the gate of the sheepfold, I have come that they may have life. But not just life, but they may have it abundantly. See, Jesus as our shepherd means that we are the sheep, and the sheep are at the will, beck, and call of the shepherd. The sheep has to abandon his or her rights and follow the lead of the shepherd. But what Jesus wants us to know is that the abandoned life is the abundant life. That he did not come just to give us life, but abundant life. Yes, he wants to take us to heaven. He will take us to heaven, but he also wants to bring heaven into us. I fear that too many of the sheep of God's pasture are not living the abundant life. We are content to live mediocre lives. We're satisfied with the status quo in our life, our spiritual life. We have to realize that that's not the purpose of Jesus for our lives. He became the door. He became the gate of the sheepfold so we could have eternal life on the other side of heaven, but have abundant life on this side of heaven. God's goal is not just to get you to heaven. God's goal is to get heaven into you while you're on earth. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And so as you go and live your life the rest of this day, the rest of this week, and the rest of the life that God gives you, seek to live the abundant life. Realize that with Jesus as the gate of the sheepfold, you can come in and come out and find pasture. There is safety and security in Jesus, and the abundant life can be yours to live right now, today.